So we are in this chapter in Book 7, the Book of Yoga, Canto 4, the triple soul forces. And we've seen how on her way, on her journey to discover her soul, Savitri has come near to the soul, but before she actually finds it, she encounters these three soul powers embodied as three goddesses. And each of those goddesses says to her, "O Savitri, I am thy secret soul." And each of them introduces themselves, tells their powers, their mission, but also their limitation. And then the limitation of their power is shown by a reflection from the lower human nature, a distorted, perverted expression of the same divine power that those goddesses represent, gets expressed in an egoistic way from the lower levels of human nature. So we have met all the three goddesses, the Madonna of sorrows, of divine pity and compassion, the Madonna of strength and power, who is shown in the form of Durga with a lion beneath her feet, trident in her hand, and the Madonna of light. So the Madonna of light has introduced herself to us. Now we are going to hear the echo. Sri Aurobindo says, the voice of the sense-shackled human mind. Mind is supposed to be a power of light. But when mind doesn't open itself to the higher realities, but chains itself to the senses, to the body, then it's no longer so much a power of light. It's still a power, but it gets blinded and distorted. She spoke. This is the mother of light. And from the ignorant nether plane, a cry, a warped echo, naked and shuddering came. A voice of the sense-shackled human mind carried its proud complaint of godlike power hedged by the limits of a mortal's thoughts, bound in the chains of earthly ignorance. Imprisoned in his body and his brain, the mortal cannot see God's mighty whole, or share in his vast and deep identity, who stands unguessed within our ignorant hearts and knows all things because he is one with all. Man only sees the cosmic surfaces. Then, wondering what may lie hid from the sense, a little way he delves to depths below. But soon he stops. He cannot reach life's core or commune with the throbbing heart of things. He sees the naked body of the truth, though often baffled by her endless garbs, but cannot look upon her soul within. Then, furious for a knowledge absolute, he tears all details out and stabs and digs. Only the shape's contents he holds for use. The spirit escapes or dies beneath his knife. He sees as a blank stretch, a giant waste, the crowding riches of infinity. The finite he has made his central field. Its plan dissects, masters its processes. That which moves all is hidden from his gaze. His poring eyes miss the unseen behind. He has the blind man's subtle, unerring touch, or the slow traveler's sight of distant scenes. The soul's revealing contacts are not his. Yet is he visited by intuitive light, and inspiration comes from the unknown. But only reason and sense he feels as sure. They only are his trusted witnesses. Thus is he balked, his splendid effort vain. His knowledge scans bright pebbles on the shore of the huge ocean of his ignorance. Yet grandiose were the accents of that cry. A cosmic pathos trembled in its tone. Rosa, you will start?
Yes. She spoke, and from the ignorant nether plane, a cry, a walk,
Echo.
naked and shuddering came. A voice of the sense-shackled human mind carried its proud complaint of godlike power,
Hedged.
by the limits of a mortal's thoughts, bound in the chain of earthly ignorance.
Yes. So she spoke, the mother of light. And from the ignorant nether plane, nether means lower, where there's not much light, a cry comes, an echo. If we stand in a cave and shout, an echo will come back to us. But this echo is a distorted echo. It's warped, it's twisted. And it's naked and shuddering. There's something painful and raw about this voice. This is the voice of the sense-shackled human mind. Shackles are chains that we put on prisoners so that they can't move their hands freely, sometimes even their feet, so they can't move properly.
Yeah, naked means what?
Yes, I don't know exactly why Sri Aurobindo uses this word here, but the effect of it is that there's nothing graceful or pleasant about this voice. There's something raw and shuddering, painful. Yeah? This voice is the voice of the human mind when it is chained to the senses, to the body. Our mind should be a power of light. It is a power of light. But if we chain it to the lower levels, to the senses, to the body, it can't give us much light. So that's why there's a complaint. It's complaining. This is the complaining of a power that feels that it is godlike, that it has some divine power in it, but it is hedged by the limits of a mortal's thoughts. A hedge. We have a hedge here dividing Savitri Bhavan from the road. You know, it's a barrier, a thick, thorny barrier of plants that you can't pass through. So when something is hedged, it's limited, closed in by the kind of thoughts that we can have, our mortal thoughts, the thoughts of beings who are doomed to die because they are, their basis is the body. And they are not only hedged in by these limits of the mortal's thoughts, but they are bound, they're tied tight in the chains of the ignorance that goes with being an earthly creature belonging to this material world. So the power is godlike, but the limits are mortal.
Imprisoned in his body and his brain, the mortal cannot see God's mighty whole, or share in his vast and deep identity, who stands unguessed within our ignorant heart, and knows all things, because is one with all.
Yes. So the mortal being, we are all potentially immortal beings because we have a divine soul within us. But until we've united with that divine soul and feel and live our immortality, we are mortals. We are bound by death and change. And we are bound by the earthly ignorance. So the mortal cannot see that huge plan, God's mighty whole. And above all, we can't feel the oneness that unites all the parts of this whole. We can't share in God's vast and deep identity, God's oneness with everything in the universe. The divine is standing unguessed. We don't guess or feel that he's there, but he is standing there within our ignorant hearts. And he knows all things because he is one with all. But we are not one with all. We are one with our limited beings, very much constricted by our bodies needs, and the mortal's thoughts. So we don't see the whole plan. Yeti, would you read?
Man only sees the cosmic surfaces. Then, wondering what may lie hid from the sense, a little way he delves to depths below. But soon he stops. He cannot reach life's core or commune with the throbbing heart of things.
Yes. Well, this is the normal human consciousness. We see the surfaces of things around us in the universe, and if we have thinking minds, we want to know what lies below the surface. Human beings have tried to understand why the surfaces are the way that they are. So they have curiosity, sometimes real scientific curiosity. So they wonder what's lying hidden beneath the surfaces, hidden from the reach of our senses. No? So then they try to dig, to delve, means to dig. So the mortal being, digs below the surface a little way. He doesn't dig very deep. He soon stops. He doesn't dig deep enough to see what is the heart of life. There are scientists really trying to understand what life is, no? But they try to understand it in terms of physical things, of things that can be detected by our senses or by the tools that our reason prepares to extend the reach of our senses. So they found out all kinds of wonderful things about the way that cells work and nourish themselves and reproduce. But what this thing that is life, what that is, they are not able to find out, no? And they cannot communicate with the throbbing heart. The life center is the heart, no? That's where it keeps our blood circulating. If the heart stops, then usually the life stops. So this limited range of view that we mortals have, we can't see into these deeper secrets. Mariana, what do you read?
He sees the naked body of the truth, though often baffled by her endless garbs, but cannot look upon her soul within. Then, furious for a knowledge absolute, he tears all details out and stabs and digs. Only the shape's contents he holds for use. The spirit escapes or dies beneath his knife.
Yes. So what do we see? We see the cosmic surfaces. It's the naked body of the truth, the physical body of the truth. And we are often baffled, we are puzzled, we don't understand the endless garbs. Truth covers herself with many, many appearances and disguises and dresses, garbs, clothing. So these things, it's more difficult to understand, partly because they're often changing. But the thinking human being, he does see this naked body, but he can't see, he can't look upon the soul that's animating that body. But if he's really determined to find out what is there, he wants to have an absolute knowledge, a knowledge without limits. He starts taking out details one by one. He tears them all out and stabs and digs to try and go deeper. But he only keeps the physical contents of the shape, of the form. Those are the only things that he thinks are useful. The subtler things, either the subtler things escape his attention, or maybe even they too get destroyed in this process of separating and digging. Gangalakshmi.
The stabs.
Sorry?
Yes.
To stab, with a dagger like that. So when you want to get to the bottom of things, you maybe take a knife and... Yes. Yes. Yes.
Trees as a blank strange Aegean vast, the crowding reaches of infinity. The finite he has made the central field. Its plain dissect, master its processes, that which move all is hidden from his gaze. His sporting eyes, his pouring eyes miss the unseen behind.
Yes. So I think here Sri Aurobindo is talking about space. We look out from our little world and we see, we call it space. We think it's empty. A giant waste, it's a kind of desert. There's nothing growing there, nothing living there. He sees it just as a blank stretch, an expanse. But in fact, it's full of the crowding riches of infinity, but he doesn't see all that, all those limitless potentialities that are held there in this apparent nothingness. The human being, the mortal, has focused on the finite, all these limited forms and shapes and movements. This is his central field. That's what we are focused on. No? So he wants to understand that. He dissects its plan. Dissecting is something that doctors do. They cut and take apart to find out the structure underlying what is inside. No? So he does that. He tries to see the underlying structure. And he does, to a certain extent, master its processes, the way that things work according to the laws of physics and thermodynamics and electromagnetic theory and all that. That has given human beings quite a lot of mastery over this physical world. No? But what is moving everything, what is keeping everything alive, he doesn't see. That's hidden from his gaze. No? His eyes, he looks very, very closely, poring eyes. You may pore over a book where the print is too small. You struggle to read it. No? So he looks very, very closely. His eyes are poring, but they miss all the invisible that is behind those cosmic surfaces. Sergei.
He has a blind, man-subtle, unerring touch. All the slow travel sight of distant scenes, the soul's revealing contacts are not his. Yet is he visited by the intuitive light, and inspiration comes from the unknown. But only reason and sense fails as sure. They only are his trusted witnesses.
Yes. So we are like blind men, and it's very astonishing how blind people manage to see without having the normal physical vision. Well, they can have this subtle, unerring touch and find their way around. No? That's one of the ways that we see the world, blindly groping around, finding our way through it. And another way that we see it is like somebody who is traveling slowly, somebody who's walking around the world. No? Gradually, different scenes are revealed. spread out over a lot of time. We don't see everything all at once, clearly and in detail and as a whole. We only see something that unrolls as we move through the world. These are the limitations of our perceptions. And yet, says Sri Aurobindo, even we mortals, we do get visited by intuitive light, the light that knows directly or brings a direct knowledge. It does happen, it does come to us, and even inspiration comes to us, gives us glimpses and insights and ideas that are not native to our thought, which are gifts that come to us from higher levels. But we feel these things are unreliable. We're not sure that they give a true guidance. No? The only things we are sure about are what our senses tell us. I've seen it with my own eyes. No? And then we are sure that it was like that or is like that. No? Or our reason. The reason can build on the data that the sense supplies to us, and it can make great discoveries and bring us a lot more knowledge. And these are the only two things that we feel really sure about. We feel that other kinds of knowledge can be misleading, and we should be careful about them. So these are the only witnesses that we trust, really. Reason and sense. But because of that, oh, we didn't read this yet. Yeah, this is for Joel to read. Yes.
Thus is he born, his splendid effort vain. His knowledge scans bright pebbles on the shore of the huge ocean of his ignorance. Yet grandiose were the accents of that cry. A cosmic pathos trembled in its tone.
So he is balked. Here it means blocked, frustrated. So all our splendid efforts, all the splendid efforts of the human mind are somehow in vain because it can't go deeper. And he gives this beautiful image that what we're doing is we are just looking at bright pebbles on the shore of a huge ocean of things that we don't know. Sri Aurobindo has borrowed this image from the great scientist Sir Isaac Newton, who he had made so many discoveries and carried human knowledge, science so much further. But he said, in the end, what we are doing, we are just like children playing with pebbles on the shore of a vast ocean. And we don't know what's on the other side of that ocean. We don't know what's in that ocean. That's the vast ocean of things that we don't know. That's the humility of the truly great scientist. So that's the situation of the sense-shackled human mind. But when this voice speaks, Sri Aurobindo says, there is some dignity, yet grandiose were the accents of that cry. There's some sense of worth of this godlike power that is the mind. And there's also something sad, something pathetic, a cosmic pathos trembled in its tone. When somebody is speaking and their voice trembles, it's because there's some deep emotion behind it. No? So this is a cosmic pathos, a universal sadness. a sense of pity and waste and frustration, lack of fulfillment. So now we'll hear what the voice it says, self says. Mahalingam, you'll read, please.
I am the mind of God's great ignorant world, ascending to knowledge by the steps he made. I am the all-discovering thought of man. I am a God, fettered by matter and sense, an animal prisoned in a fence of thoughts, a beast of labor asking for his food, a smith tied to his anvil and his forge.
So this is the first thing he says. This is who I am, and this is my condition. I'm the mind of this great ignorant world. So he's a representative figure of the human mind plane. So I'm ascending, I'm gradually increasing my knowledge, I'm gaining more knowledge by the steps that God has made. I am the all-discovering thought of man. There's some confidence, some feeling that the human thought will eventually be able to find out everything. And he also expresses this idea of a God-like power, fettered. This word is the same as shackled or chained. Fetters and shackles are the same things. So what are these chains? Matter, the limitations of inert matter, and the limitations of our senses, which interpret the world of matter to our mind, to our intelligence. And he says, I'm an animal. We are all animals in our bodies, no? I'm an animal, and I'm confined, I'm limited. All around me there's a fence of thorns. I can't go beyond that fence. That's similar to this hedge which came earlier. And I have to work hard. It's a really characteristic thing of human beings, that somehow we have to work. No? Animals don't work. They hunt and they eat and they sleep and they play and they mate. But human beings, characteristically, we have to work. So he says, I'm not only an animal, I'm a beast of labor. And I have to labor. If I don't labor, I won't get anything to eat. No? I'm a smith tied to his anvil and his forge. A smith is the craftsman who works with metal, particularly iron. So a smith is a craftsman. No? He makes things. We human beings, we make things. But he's like a slave. He's tied to that anvil, that metal platform where he has to hammer his things. And the forge is the workshop where he does his work with metal. I'm a prisoner there, a prisoner of my action, my work. Gomsun.
Yet have I loosened the cord and rotted my wing. I have mapped the heavens and analyzed the stars, described their orbits through the grooves of space, measured the miles that separate the suns, compute their longevity in time.
You can read the next two lines.
I have
delved
into Earth's
bowels,
and found out the riches guarded by her dull brown soil.
Yes. So he says, I'm tired, I'm a beast of burden, I'm tired, but I have loosened the cord a little bit. I have enlarged my room. I'm not such a prisoner as I was. And I've looked at the skies and made maps of the heavens, analyzed the stars. It's really amazing that, they can detect stars billions of miles away and tell us what they're made of. And it's just amazing. And I've described their orbits through the grooves of space. The stars seem to move as if they're on tracks, their orbits, and even the laws governing the orbits of the heavenly bodies. These have been worked out by the human mind. No? And I've measured how far, how many miles separate the suns, the different solar systems. No? I've computed their longevity in time. Longevity is how long you will live. So the cosmologists and mathematicians, they can tell us, oh yes, our sun is so many billions of years old, and after another so many billions of years it's going to die. And they can do this for suns that are many, many miles away in other galaxies even. And I have dug into the bowels. The bowels, it's this stomach part of you, of the earth. We say into the bowels of the earth. We dig down and we find gold and diamonds and all kinds of metals and things that we can use. No? So I've torn out the riches that are protected by this dull brown soil that just seems to be the surface of the earth. And we're finding ever more ingenious ways of tearing these riches out from the bowels of the earth and devastating huge areas. It's terrible.
Computed there or
Computed, it means to work out mathematically. That's, we call them computers because they were invented first of all to work for calculations. Yes. Uma, you'll read?
I have classed the changes of a stony crust and of a biography discovers the dates, resetting the pages of all nature's plan. The tree of evolution I have sketched, each branch and twig and leaf in its own place. And the
Embryo.
track the history of forms and the
Genealogy.
frame of all that lives.
Yes, thank you. So one of the things that the mind loves to do is to classify things. When we have books in a library, we want to put them in an order so that we can find them when we want them. So in order to do that, we have to class them. We have to say, oh, these are Savitri books, and these are books about Savitri, and these are books by Sri Aurobindo, and these are books about Sri Aurobindo. So we class things, and scientists do that very carefully. They classify, and they have given us a kind of history of the earth and the changes, and they've given names to different periods in the history of the earth. No? The way that this stony surface of the earth has changed. The geologists, they tell us many marvelous things about how the earth's surface has changed over billions of years, and discovered the dates of her biography, her life story. Rescued the pages of all nature's plan. Well, we think we have. I don't. we don't have all the pages yet. But, and one of the things that the scientists have done is to sketch out the tree of evolution, that everything grows from this trunk, and the branch goes off here and there, and off the branches there go twigs and leaves, and this species is a leaf here, and this one is a leaf there, which ones are connected and which ones are not. No? And another thing that they've done, it's connected with this evolutionary theory, they've looked at the forms of the embryos. An embryo is an unborn being. There are human embryos, but there are also frog embryos or lizard embryos or fish. And part of the science of creating this tree of evolution is to look at the way that the embryos develop. So that we find the human embryo at certain stages it looks like a little fish, and then it looks more like a frog, and so on. And the genealogy framed of all that lives. Your genealogy is the history of your family. People create these family trees, no? And they go back, this is my father's family and my mother's family, my grandparents, and before that there were these people, and families who've really been keeping records for many, many years. Aristocratic families have done that. They have quite complete family trees. No? This is the study of families, genealogy. So here he says we have detected the genealogy, the family history of all nature's forms, of everything that lives. Bhavana.
I have detected plasma and cell and gene. The protozoa traced man's ancestors, the humble originals from whom he rose. I know how he was born and how he died. Only what end he serves I know not yet. Or if there is aim at all, any end or push of which creating purposeful joy in the wide worlds of the terrestrial power.
Yes, let's pause there. So I've detected plasm. We got this word several places in Savitri, and I'm still not sure exactly what it means. To me, what it suggests is the original form of matter before it's differentiated into this and that. But it also refers to a state of the blood or a component, part of the blood. And the cells, now that we know that we're all made up of many, many different types of cells, and we've learned about genes over the last 100-odd years, you know, that there are these minute little cells within us which seem to be coded like the software of a computer. We've traced the protozoa, the most primitive life forms, who are the ancestors of humanity. Those are very, very humble originals. Now we have grown so complex and we think we're so clever, but we couldn't have be here at all if it weren't for those protozoa, our ancestors. And I found out how human beings are born and how they die. Only what I haven't found out is, what is the purpose of man? Does he have any reason to exist? What end he serves? I don't even know whether there is a purpose, whether there is an aim or a goal. I don't know whether there's any real creative purpose, any push of rich, creative, purposeful joy in the wide works of the terrestrial power. The terrestrial power is what we call nature, and she seems to be very, very creative, but we don't know whether there's any purpose in all that creativity of nature. Bhavan.
I have caught her intricate processes, none is left. Her huge machinery is in my hands. I have seized the cosmic energies for my use. I have caught and heard
Infinitesimal means infinitely small.
elements, and her invisible atoms have unmasked. All matter is a book I have perused. Only some pages now are left to read. I have seen the ways of life, the parts of mind, and have studied the methods of the end and ache and the behavior learned of man and woman.
Yes. So in line 565, when he says, I've caught her intricate processes, it means nature, the terrestrial power. There's nothing left that I haven't understood. And I'm controlling that huge machinery of nature. I know how to master her. I've got hold of these universal energies, and I know how to use them. And I've looked closely at her tiniest little elements, and I've unmasked, I've revealed those atoms which we can't see and yet which we can visualize. All matter is a book that I have perused, he said. It means I have read it. But then he has to admit that there are some pages left that he hasn't read yet. He's perused it, he's looked through it, but he hasn't read all the pages. I've seen the ways of life, the paths of mind. I've studied the methods of the ant and ape and the behavior learned of man and worm. The behavior of worms is sometimes quite fascinating, but we won't go into that just now. Suresh.
Man and worm are put together.
Yes, because he says God, the inhabiting Godhead, in the worm he foresees the God to come. So man is somewhere halfway between the worm and the God. Suresh.
If God is at work, his secret idol form. But still, the cause of things is left in the
Doubt.
The truth
flees
from pursuit
yeah.
into a void. When all has been explained, nothing is known.
Yes, so that's the trouble. No? He says, if God's doing something, I found out all his secret, but still the cause of things is left in doubt. What is the reason for all this? No? The truth behind all these things. If I try to search for that, it runs away from me, flees from pursuit. When you're pursuing something, you're following it. And what you're following runs away from you, flees into a void, into an emptiness. When the human mind has explained everything, still nothing is really known. Dhanalakshmi.
What chose the process? Whence the power sprang? I know not, and perhaps shall never know. A mystery is this mighty nature's birth. A mystery is the elusive stream of mind. A mystery, the protein freak of life. What I have learned, chance leaps to contradict. What I have built is seized and torn by fate.
Yes, thank you. So this is line 579, continuing about the cause. What chose the process? Why do things happen like this? Where did that power spring from? Where was it born from? Where did it come from? I don't know, and perhaps I shall never know. Real materialists say it's no use even asking these questions, we can't ever answer them. So this mighty nature, this terrestrial power who's created everything we see around us, it's a mystery. Even this stream of our own minds is a mystery. It's elusive. We can't follow all the thoughts. We don't know where they all come from and where they are leading us. And life is a mystery. The protean freak of life. This word protean is an adjective from the name of a Greek demigod, Proteus, who could change his shape. So if you tried to catch hold of him, if you had to fight with him, he might be like a tree, and then he turns into a snake, and then he turns into something else, and you can't hold. So life is like that. It's always changing its shape, many, many forms, but somehow you can't grasp what life itself is. Sometimes we feel that we've learned things and understood things, and then something happens for no apparent reason and shows us that we were completely wrong, that we misunderstood. And sometimes we spend a lot of effort building things up, creating things, and then fate, destiny comes along and destroys it. So there's some kind of fundamental uncertainty about the achievements of human mind. We'll stop there for today. She spoke, and from the ignorant nether plane a cry, a warped echo, naked and shuddering came. A voice of the sense-shackled human mind carried its proud complaint of God-like power hedged by the limits of a mortal's thoughts, bound in the chains of earthly ignorance. Imprisoned in his body and his brain, the mortal cannot see God's mighty whole, or share in his vast and deep identity, who stands unguessed within our ignorant hearts, and knows all things because he is one with all. Man only sees the cosmic surfaces. Then, wondering what may lie hid from the sense, a little way he delves to depths below. But soon he stops. He cannot reach life's core, or commune with the throbbing heart of things. He sees the naked body of the truth, though often baffled by her endless garbs, but cannot look upon her soul within. Then, Furious for a knowledge absolute, he tears all details out and stabs and digs. Only the shape's contents he holds for use. The spirit escapes or dies beneath his knife. He sees as a blank stretch, a giant waste, the crowding riches of infinity. The finite he has made his central field. Its plan dissects, masters its processes. That which moves all is hidden from his gaze. His poring eyes miss the unseen behind. He has the blind man's subtle, unerring touch, or the slow traveller's sight of distant scenes. The soul's revealing contacts are not his. Yet is he visited by intuitive light, and inspiration comes from the unknown. But only reason and sense he feels as sure. They only are his trusted witnesses. Thus is he balked, his splendid effort vain. His knowledge scans bright pebbles on the shore of the huge ocean of his ignorance. Yet grandiose were the accents of that cry. A cosmic pathos trembled in its tone. I am the mind of God's great ignorant world, ascending to knowledge by the steps he made. I am the all-discovering thought of man. I am a God fettered by matter and sense, an animal prisoned in a fence of thorns, a beast of labour asking for his food, a smith tied to his anvil and his forge. Yet have I loosened the cord, enlarged my room. I have mapped the heavens and analyzed the stars, described their orbits through the grooves of space, measured the miles that separate the suns, computed their longevity in time. I have delved into earth's bowels and torn out the riches guarded by her dull brown soil. I have classed the changes of her stony crust, and of her biography discovered the dates, rescued the pages of all nature's plan. The tree of evolution I have sketched, each branch and twig and leaf in its own place. In the embryo tracked the history of forms, and the genealogy framed of all that lives. I have detected plasm and cell and gene, the protozoa traced, man's ancestors, the humble originals from whom he rose. I know how he was born and how he dies. Only what end he serves I know not yet, or if there is aim at all, or any end, or push of rich, creative, purposeful joy in the wide works of the terrestrial power. I have caught her intricate processes, none is left. Her huge machinery is in my hands. I have seized the cosmic energies for my use. I have poured on her infinitesimal elements, and her invisible atoms have unmasked. All matter is a book I have perused. Only some pages now are left to read. I have seen the ways of life, the paths of mind. I have studied the methods of the ant and ape, and the behavior learned of man and worm. If God is at work, his secrets I have found. But still the cause of things is left in doubt. Their truth flees from pursuit into a void. When all has been explained, nothing is known. What chose the process, whence the power sprang, I know not, and perhaps shall never know. A mystery is this mighty nature's birth. A mystery is the elusive stream of mind. A mystery, the protean freak of life. What I have learned, chance leaps to contradict. What I have built is seized and torn by fate.